basically you're saying then that broilers only mostly live for 6 weeks, so that means it's a different type of a bird completely.
There are two methods of raising your broilers, mostly layers don't require litter changes within their lifespan, which you usually keep layers for like 2 years. But broilers, there's two methods. You can either do litter replacement, which is after every batch of birds.
So I thought that pound for pound, in terms of production and cost, the goats are better. But unless I've got that wrong.
You may be right. But as I said, you're looking at numbers. It's easier to take care and control one cow than it is to control, say, 10 goats.
That's true.
Until look after 10 goats.
Can you tell us what are the major differences between raising sheep and goats? How many acres per cow would a person need if they actually want to raise a cow on their own land? If you are new to this podcast, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share, because that helps us to be recommended in the algorithms. If you would like to support this podcast, please check out our merch store on Amazon with the brand Todd and Me. We've got some cool t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and sweaters. Link will be in the description of this podcast. And if you're now starting a spiritual journey, you would like to start a spiritual journey, or you're currently on a spiritual journey and you would like some help removing some fears and traumas, please hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 and it will help you to get some magic mushrooms. Enjoy the show and stay tuned because we have some more great content coming soon. Hello friends, and welcome back to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. I am your host Ronald Cave, and today we have another awesome conversation for you because we're going to talk about animal husbandry and how to do it well. So I brought back my father Ronald Cave onto the show today, who has over 40 years of experience in animal husbandry. With most of our food today being full of chemicals and hormones, there is a growing amount of people who are looking to grow their own food, and raising animals is an important part of that entire ecosystem. So today we're going to go into detail on how to raise animals well and how to be successful at it if you're thinking about doing it as a business. Now, what prompted this conversation for me as well, and this entire series about food, is that a few years ago I was at a conference and I was speaking to a few people, and they were telling me that they want to go and live off the land and be off grid and stuff. And from talking to them, I realized that they had zero clue on what is required to grow food and to raise animals. And from talking to some of my new followers who have homesteads, they were sharing some of their stories on the things that they learned when they first transitioned to going off grid and actually having land and animals. And the objective of this podcast is to add as much value as possible to people who are going through spiritual enlightenment and are looking to go off grid and to live a life where they have no interaction with the state or as little as possible. So conversations like this are very important because you're going to get a lot of tips that normally you wouldn't get from anyone, and you would have to pay big money to people for them to teach you these things. So if any of the content adds value to you, please feel free to reach out to my father and ask any questions. His contact details will be in the show notes of this podcast.
When truth is blurred by lies and misinformation, perception becomes reality. What will you perceive your reality to be?
Liberate your fears and walk with me.
Sit down and meditate. Connect with your soul.
Be a monster and then learn how to control it.
You gotta be willing to do the work.
So it really goes really deep in terms of words and etymology and what they mean. So this is why it is really hard to really crack the matrix, because there's so many levels and layers to it, Hi, welcome back to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. How are you today?
I'm fine, Todd. Thanks for inviting me back. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, and the conversation that we had last time was really interesting and really good. And I got some comments from people saying that it added value. So I thought that we should really go to the other side of farming, which is the animal husbandry side. And that is also a very big part because meat is a big protein source that we consume. So let's start from the beginning. So if someone was interested, in raising animals, what are some of the most important things that they should first consider?
Well, it all depends on the purpose of the animals because you have meat and you have milk animals. In terms of cows, there's milk production and beef production. So that would determine the breed of animal that you will be looking to secure. If it comes to chickens, then you have another category, which is layers, and you have broilers. So it all depends on what they're looking for. If they're looking for meat production or eggs or milk, will determine the direction that they go.
Okay, so let's start with chickens, as from our last conversation, they're such an important part of the ecosystem for growing food. So, what are some of the major challenges that one would face when raising chickens?
Well, broilers, the issues with broilers, one of the challenges is heat and then proper access to high quality feed if you're going in for meat production, because broilers only live for 6 weeks. So you have from day one, they come to you as day old chicks, and you have to feed them for these 6 weeks to this what you call market, which is slaughtering age. And you want to raise a good sized bird for market. So, and broilers usually are most productive in terms of feed and weight conversion between the 5th and the 6th week. That's when you make your highest production per pound or kilo of feed that you put in. In terms of layers, well, layers, you have to raise layers for approximately 21 weeks. And you have to make sure that the layers have proper nutrition as well, because if they're deficient in feed, nutrients, and water during the development stage to laying, then you don't reach the high percentage of production, or the quality of the egg is not as good. You get a lot of soft shells and that type of thing. So those are mainly the challenges as far as poultry are concerned. If you're going to the animals, then it basically is the same thing. As a matter of availability of proper nutrients, fodder, feed, water, and then there's conditions under which the animals are raised, healthy conditions, sanitary conditions. All those are issues that you have to look into. But if before you start, the main thing is to find a proper location and a well-designed housing space for them. Because if they're not comfortable, then they develop what they call stress, which has a relationship to production.
Well, one of my questions was going to be the different types of chickens, but in the conversation you've already said. So just so that people can get clarity, broilers are the ones that we eat, basically, and the layers are the ones that we only lay eggs, I should say. So basically you're saying then that broilers only mostly live for 6 weeks. So that means it's a different type of a bird completely.
Yes, broilers, you keep the, in terms of, they live past 6 weeks, but in terms of the production level, the most efficient conversion stage is up to the 6 weeks. When you go over the 6 weeks, then production per ratio of feed per pound gain reduces. So it's not really profitable to raise them past that stage. Plus, then you're looking at meat quality. in that the meat is not as tender. It's not that noticeable, but it's not as tender when you go past the 6 weeks.
Okay, so what are some of the common mistakes that people make when they're growing chickens in general, both layers and broilers?
Overcrowding. Layers typically require 2 square feet per bird, and broilers require a square foot minimum per bird. So when you overstock them in terms of quantity of birds per space, then that's where it develops stress, and you get things like feather picking, and even in case of broilers, you can have what you would say wet conditions, because the broilers drink so much water and they excrete so much waste that when they're too close, the area then becomes damp, and that leads to lots of health issues like feet and sores and other issues.
So basically, keeping the pen dry seems to be one of the most paramount things that one should take care of when they're growing broilers and layers, for that matter.
Yes, because under wet conditions, especially with the ammonia from the chickens, it builds up, and that in itself can cause issues with the chickens themselves. So it's always best to keep the pen as dry as possible.
So I remember as a boy, I used to be seeing you like rotivating the litter in the pen. Does that help as well for getting more sanitary conditions? Would that help in terms of like dryness and stuff like that?
There are two methods of raising your broilers, or well, mostly layers don't require litter changes within their lifespan, which you usually keep layers for like 2 years. But broilers, there's two methods. You can either do litter replacement, which is after every batch of birds, you can go and take that litter out and replace it with fresh, clean, new litter, or you can retain the old litter and go for another season or a couple of seasons. But in order to do that, you have to turn the litter. We use a rotivator to turn the litter up and create air inside the litter itself. And that air helps to not only dry the litter, but also to release all the trapped ammonia from the moisture of the chicken stool and the wetness. That helps to alleviate that ammonia, and it will come out. So usually after every batch of birds, the minimum time is about 2 weeks, I would say, before you put another batch in there. You turn your litter and you allow the litter to dry. And not only that, too, when you turn it, it creates a bit of a heat, which in itself acts as a sterilization for the litter itself. Because when it's like composting, similar to that, in that you aerate it and the moisture creates a heat, it eliminates the ammonia, and it breaks down the litter a bit, and with the heat that is created, it sterilizes itself. So about 2 to 3 weeks is the time that you usually would replace a new set of birds on that old litter. But you can do other things like burn feathers, remove the feathers, and or you can spray if you want to use sprays that would help sterilize. But you don't necessarily have to do that if you're conscious of chemicals. But the sterilization with the heat of the litter is good enough. And if you have any doubts as to whether it would get warm enough, it can also heat the litter up in a like what they call a raw, and that would increase the heat and the speed of which it would get hot. and then you just spread it out and give it a little time, and the litter will be completely sterilized.
Okay, so interesting that you say that because when you have like the free range chickens, so those would be the free range broilers then that are walking around. So in terms of conversion for feed and stuff, you would probably have to give them more feed because they're walking around a bit more, or and would the 6 weeks time period be still applicable to them being that they're not sedentary?
Broilers are not traditionally what we call a free range bird. You can utilize them. Yes, there are certain challenges because I find that broilers don't like to walk a lot. But there are other breeds of meat birds that are specifically bred for free range. But you can also use the broilers. And those birds for free range, they take longer to reach maturity, whereas the broilers get there in 6 weeks. But you can still use the broilers, but you have to pay a little more care because, as I said, broilers don't usually, they're very lazy and they don't usually do a lot of walking. And you have to make sure that you have proper shade because being they're white and they grow so fast, then you have to keep the sun and so on away from them as much as you can. Although they'll enjoy the sun, but that still has a part in the production.
So it sounds like basically keeping them cool is one of the most important things because I know from our pens that we have a lot of fans, and this time of the year is really good for when you're going to send out chickens because it's a lot cooler. While in the summer, it's a challenge.
Yes, because broilers grow at such a fast rate, their internal temperature is a lot higher than the average bird, which should be like the free range or layers of those sorts, because they were specifically bred to achieve full production in 6 weeks. So they convert the feed faster, and the conversion of feed is related to heat displacement. So they do get a lot warmer internally. So that's why they drink a lot more water. And then you have to make sure that you provide them with adequate shade if you're doing free range, that they can disperse that heat from them.
Okay. So I know when growing broilers, you tend to have to give them a lot of like medicines and vaccines and all that kind of stuff. So is it possible for a farmer who is growing like broilers himself, not necessarily for, market, to not necessarily have to use all of those sort of medicaments to grow a good quality bird?
The majority of birds that come that are produced in what you call hatcheries, commercial hatcheries, all of them, they are vaccinated before they leave the plant. I would say 99%, if not 100%. So, and that is because to help to protect them from environmental challenges, because no matter any country you go to, there's always certain bird flus and different infections around, and that is to protect them initially from that. Once you have them on your site, some people do give additional medications like vaccines and that type of thing, but it is not always necessary if you maintain a good hygienic area, and as I said, the birds get adequate nutritional nutrients in their feed. Then you shouldn't really have a lot of challenges with diseases. Once the pen is wet, it's dry, the areas are dry, then you should be safe. You can still raise them without a lot of medications, but they will come already vaccinated.
Okay, so what are some of the schedules that you do when you to like boost production quality? Because I remember from memory, you used to put something in water in like about 3 weeks, and then another thing at 5 weeks. So what are those kind of like things that you would put in to help boost the quality and the growth of the birds and stuff like that?
That what I was putting in at the time was not a booster for the growth. That was an additional vaccination that I used to put in the water for the birds before they get 3 weeks. And then there was another application after the 3 week period. But I don't do that anymore because experience has shown me that it was a live virus that he was given. It was for something called Gumboro, which is worldwide. And I've found that if you maintain good hygienic conditions, you can get away without having to bring that live virus on your farm, which I don't like in the first place, because once you bring the live virus on your farm, then you have the Gumboro and you have to use the vaccine. So I was able to rid my farm of that first, and I stopped using the vaccine. But we use vitamins to supplement the nutrition. Water soluble, you buy them in the package and you put them in the water, and that works well to aid them in there's something called super booster, something like that. But there are various vitamins out there that you can buy.
Okay, and then there's they get something called coccidiosis as well, no? That you have to treat sometimes.
Yes, most feed manufacturers will produce a cocciostat in their feed, especially starter, because all the birds born with some form of coccidiosis. So it's a balance that you have to maintain with the bird and the conditions. If your conditions are dry, because the cocci virus, it needs to multiply itself in the litter and then return back to the bird. So if your conditions are dry, the ability to do that is not very good. So there's a balance between how much the bird has and how much is passing back to him from the pen. So if your litter is good, you wouldn't have any effects from the coccidiosis.
Okay, I see.
So that's why it's a science, and you have to know what to look for and how to prepare for it.
So what about the signs then? So since you mentioned it, what are the signs then you would know that definitely your birds have coccidiosis?
There's blood in stool.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely a science. So you have to, and the thing is that with growing chickens, from what I have seen, is a constant vigilance that you have to pay on them. At least twice a day, you have to check your birds, or maybe more, no?
Yeah, it's good to keep an eye on your birds, see how they're progressing, their growth rate, and when they're not growing fast enough for you, then you implement certain controls so that you can introduce vitamins and those type of things, and you monitor birds and see if you see any cocci in the pen more than is normal. And yeah, and as I said, nutrient balance in the feed is you have to keep an eye on that too, the quality of the feed.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about layers, because we only briefly mentioned them at the top of the conversation. So you said that they take 20 weeks in order to produce, and 21 weeks.
On average, they don't go past 21 weeks. I would say from about 17 weeks or so, you may get a few putting out some eggs. But by 21 weeks, the majority of the birds would have started laying.
Okay. And then in terms of because you would have to give them, I guess, vitamins as well. So what are some of the little strategies that you would do to boost the production or to get great quality eggs? Because, I eat loads of eggs. So I know that you do something.
You have to always have the production of eggs is a high demanding on the birds. So you always have to keep feed in front of them if you want 100% production. Feed and good quality water and vitamins in the early stages to give them, to boost them before they start laying. Just with broilers, the first 3 weeks of a broiler's growth is the most important. If you have a broiler that grows well within the first 3 weeks, there's very little that you have to do. After that, he will continue to grow for the next 3 weeks. With layers, if you get good production and growth and development for the first, before they start to lay, let's say for the first 16 to 20 weeks, chances are that the layers will continue to maintain good growth, good development, and good egg production. Unless you, for whatever reason, refuse to feed them or give them water, then your production can drop drastically. And once the production drops, it is very difficult to get the production up to what the level was before. So for some reason, that is what happens. But the main thing is to make sure that they get in the nutrient requirements. And you give them, you always have feed in front of them all day. You don't necessarily have to do them at night because you can let them rest if you want at night, but then in the day they will wake up and eat. Some people feed them in the night, keep on the light, but you don't have to. You can raise them without the light.
Okay, so then in terms of like the free range layers, I guess they will be constantly picking, but do they then go back inside the pen to get the feed, or you have to feed at various points around the farm to keep the quality?
Some people do it two ways. Some people have the feed inside the shed or the pen that they will go in or come out as they want. And some people will put the feed outside. It all depends on the weather conditions and so on, because water, rain, and that type of thing can impact on the feed. If it wet the feed, it can go moldy and bad. But some people do have the feed. They will walk around. The thing about layers is that layers are very good foragers. So once you have the land area, they will go around and they will look for worms and insects and eat certain grasses and so on. And they will have their stomach full with that, and they will go back to the pen and they will eat feed. They require less feed when they forage than if they were in the pen without foraging, and they will know what to eat. And the quality of the eggs will be good quality, and there will be the egg yolk will be a different color because of the green in the grass that they're eating. That changes the color of the yolk, make it more reddish color.
Yeah, orange red.
Orange red, which shows you that it's a free range egg. If you crack that egg shell and it comes out orange red, it's a free range egg. If it comes out pale yellow, it's a farm raised in a pen egg, basically color corn.
Well, this is the thing, because I bought some free range eggs this week that's supposed to be free range, and I cracked the eggs this morning, and I was like, well, these are just pale yellow. I mean, they're not like deep, dark, orange, red type color. And I'm like, this is a fraud.
As I said, once they're walking around eating insects and foraging on the grasses, the egg yolk will be a rich yellow, red, orangey kind of color. If they're only fed corn, the egg will reflect the color of the corn, which is a light yellow, and even more pale than that.
Does it actually reduce the nutritional value, or is it just the color that is a representation of if it's free range or not?
The nutritional value is much better in a free range egg. It has more a bigger diversity of nutrition from different areas, insects, grass, and those type of things. And then the corn that they're eating from inside your barn, the feed. So it has a broader range of nutrition. So the, the egg will be what the bird eat.
True.
Better nutrition, the better quality the egg. And science has shown that when birds eat grass, the quality of the egg increases. Even the texture of the yolk is a little slightly tougher, more tough than when it pale. When you slightly touch that pale yolk, it runs. When it's a free range and you touch it, it don't necessarily run. And if it runs, it don't run as fast.
It just boggles my mind why it is that we don't have more like free range type of growing for the layers, because eggs are one of the most staple foods on the planet. The only people that don't eat eggs are vegans. Most other people eat eggs. And I'm a person that eats 6 eggs a day every single day of my life. And I just find it that eggs are so cheap and they don't seem to be that difficult to grow. So why is it that they only feed corn? I would have thought that it'd be cheaper to let them to forage and pick stuff.
It all depends on the amount of land you have. So you're dealing with allocation of resources. If you and then you're looking at cost. If a person put down a 10,000 square foot pen and he put those birds in there, and he may have one person looking after those birds and the eggs. If they're probably in a cage, and the eggs roll all out, and automatically the eggs come to your plate because they're on rollers. They never touch the ground, nothing. So, but when you're doing free range now, you can have your housing, but then you can have a big area for the chickens to walk around. Some of them sometimes don't always return to the barn to lay the eggs. They may lay the eggs along outside. So then you would need, it's a little more work in terms of you have to go around and collect the eggs from those areas. So it's a little more labor intensive. That's why I suppose the cost of the free range eggs are a little more expensive. But I think it comes down to your person's choice. The person don't want to allocate so much space for raising the amount of chickens where he can build up a barn and keep them in a pen, and in 2 years' time, he'd finish production.
I guess it's profit driven more than anything else,
It's profit. It is profit driven rather than health rather than health. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, I think that now 2025 is upon us. I'm starting to see a shift where health is going to become a lot more of a focus for most people, because I think that it is coming out more and more and more that the food that we're eating is actually very, very poor quality food. And from the last conversation that we had, well, basically it confirms that because you have hybrids as well, even for the plants. So I think that this conversation is really important, because I hardly find anywhere on the internet where you actually have people breaking down the science of growing food and, the tips and tricks that you need to look for, because I think that the way for us to get back healthy is for most of us to start to produce our own food in a small way. Because like back in the day, especially in Barbados, almost every single house had a kitchen garden, and almost every single body had a chicken or a sheep or a goat or something like that. And we've moved away from that because of quotation marks luxury, and our health has deteriorated as such, with all the ailments and stuff that we're having,
But that's the issue, ailments, because if you eat healthy food, you live longer, so you're more productive in your lifespan. When you eat unhealthy food, then you get sick quicker, and you go into the hospital or wherever, retirement home, whatever, and that is a cost then that you have to look to pay for, rather than if you was eating good food and living to 100. So the idea now is to live long but live a healthy life rather than living short time but an unhealthy life, because the latter version require you to pay out a lot of money in medical bills. You get cancer, you get all these different ailments, diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, all those things. And when you kept them, somebody got to gain from the medication that you're taking, either the insurance that you have to pay for, or if you don't have insurance, you have to pull your pocket and pay for them if you have the money. And there's no guarantee that you can live long. You might live short, leave your children there now to make it on their own. But if you come up eating healthy, chances are, with the medical science and everything, your body's strong, you should live a longer and more productive life. That is where everybody's looking at now, or a lot of people are looking at it at that now. But they're realizing that you better spend the money in good food that will enable you to live long with very little medical expenses than to eat the unhealthy food and live a short period of time and have a long time of suffering of ailments that you're paying for.
Yeah, this is why I'm really happy to have this conversation now. And let's switch gears and talk about my absolute favorite animal, which is a goat. So can you tell the listeners what are some of the most important things they need to know when raising goats?
Goats are, when you compare a goat with a sheep, a goat is not as hardy as a sheep. A goat will not take as much stress as sheep will do. So you've got to be very particular with raising goats. It don't take much for them to pass away. They look strong and sturdy, but it don't take much. When they get sick, they're more likely to die. A sheep now will fight it out and survive, but a goat gives up his life very, very easily. And they're very high in milk production, so their nutritional requirements are a lot higher. But they're good. They're good animals.
I love goats
to keep, because the milk is extremely good quality.
But I think goat's milk is the best quality milk that you can get, because for the listeners, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. When I was in Barbados living, I used to sell goat milk and goat meat. And I would never forget, like, when I first started to drink goat milk, like, the taste was just completely different, but the nutritional value was better, because I started to go to the gym and I used to drink a lot of goat's milk when I was starting my fitness journey and stuff like that. And the thing that a lot of people don't even realize about goat's milk is that you can actually give babies after 6 months goat's milk to drink. If you get the raw goat's milk and you scald it, you can give it to them and they will drink it. And it is the closest thing to mother's milk that you can get. And it boggles my mind always why goat's milk is one of those things. I can't really say suppressed, but I would say not favored or not much known about, because I think goats are better animals than cows, to be honest. But I may just be biased here.
Well, cows are more stronger animals, put it that way. And you can get away with a lot of conditions that you can put cows under, and you won't get away with putting goats under. And in terms of production, if you bringing in a cow and bringing in a goat, and you putting them on the milking machine, and if a goat can only give a certain amount of milk, a cow can give you buckets of milk, depending on the breed of the milk. I mean, those high producing cows, the milk don't have a lot of fat in it, but it's quantity as production that people are looking for, because it's profit. So the more milk, the more profit. So that's the reason why cows are preferred over goats. You can have the same amount of cows as you have goats and produce many, many, many times more milk than a goat.
Okay, let's talk about this a little bit because I always thought, I remember when I was first reading up on goats as a kid, I thought that pound for pound, a goat was a better producer of milk because of the amount of, it's much less to feed them. So I thought that pound for pound, in terms of production and cost, goats are better. But unless I've got that wrong.
You may be right, but as I said, you're looking at numbers. It's easier to take care and control one cow than it is to control, say, 10 goats.
That's true.
And to look after 10 goats. And if you're going into milking, to hold put 10 goats on a milking machine or milking them by hand, in opposed to putting one cow in place, the labor, the time, you can see the difference right away. It's a cost.
So basically, again, we have a situation where cost is the driver instead of health, because
Into the health. Yes.
it is a fact that goat's milk is a better quality milk than cow's milk. And
Yes.
it's a softer milk. And for the listeners out there that don't know, most people that are lactose intolerant can actually drink goat's milk. So like, for example, my mother, she's lactose intolerant, but she can drink goat's milk, no problem, right? And I have had a few of my other friends that are lactose intolerant, and when they drink goat's milk, no problem. So it just boggles my mind where, again, we've chosen volume and cost instead of quality, because in reality, we could actually get better quality milk, you know?
Yes, yes. But as you said before, it's a matter of cost. It's more profit driven.
If you want to silence the phone, you can silence it.
Health is. But that's what health is. In opposed to profit, mankind has always chosen the profit route over the health route.
Yeah, that's a sad reality. So we talked a little bit about goats being so arguably, like I said, I think that they're better pound for pound. So what are some of the breeds that are the best for milk production for the goats?
The Sienna, the white Sienna, and the Sienna, the Alpine, and you have the Talking Bird. Those are the three best milk producing breeds. There are other breeds out there, lots of exotic breeds and so on. But in terms of profit and production per cost input, the Talking Bird, the Alpine, and the Sienna are the three best breeds.
Okay, and in terms of because I remember when we were raising goats, there were one of the little particulars that we used to try to breed for is certain types of breasts, because you have like I don't know what to call them, but you call them the long bubby type goats or the sagging breast goats, and then you have
the bottle shape breast, you used to call it.
Yeah, and we found that those types of breasts give the most trouble, because as they are walking around, because you have to milk the goats twice a day, and by evening time, those sacks are full again, and if they're walking around, they tend to, hit the breast and what's not. So the other ones were more like that'd be similar looking to the cows, where they have more like a bit of a longer stem. I don't know what the type you would call them, utter type breast.
But I don't remember what the name referred to, but the breast used to go further up to the stomach.
Yes,
that's what gave them the ability to hold basically the same amount of milk, but without dropping down too low. And even when it comes to milking, they're easier to milk than the long-breasted milk, because if you're milking by hand or even by machine, you have to hold that weight up before you can actually start to get the milk. And as you say, walking around, the breast will be licking on stones and any debris you got there that would bruise them. And then you have to take care of that. So we used to breed from animals that show that that breast that go up under the stomach. And we would choose those to breed from rather than the bottle type breast.
Yeah, and because one of the things that a lot of people may not understand is that it does take some time for you to produce the quality of goats that you want for milking and for meat. So one of the key things is having a good ram to do that, and then it would take time to breed because the long bobby breast goats, they tend to be very heavy producers of milk. Well,
both of them are heavy producers of milk. It's just that one has different shape others. But if you breed consistently for the shape and consistently breed for higher production, choosing the goats that give the most milk, and you keep the rams from that particular type of animal, then you will reach the percentage of milk that you want with small breasts that are not hanging as low. Put it that way. So you can achieve the same thing with those type of breasts as well, and the same kind of conversion rate because the goats are no bigger or smaller than normal.
Yeah, this is true. So, as you had said before, goats are really sensitive compared to sheep. So, what are some of the little things that people should be aware of, like maybe medicine regimes or best practices to keep their goats healthy and to reduce sickness and stuff like, because they're very soft animals, to be fair?
Well, they require good fodder. They require you can give them, and you need to worm them on a regular basis. Most animals you need to worm them. You can either use they're different. You can go either natural worming, or you can use the different wormers that they have out there. It don't matter which one. But worming the goat, make sure that they have good fodder and that the pen that they're in is clean. You should clean the litter every so often, as often as you can, because you can get certain parasites and insects breeding in those conditions because they do pass a lot of water too.
Sorry, my internet literally just dropped.
I was wondering what happened.
Yeah. So the last thing I heard was fodder.
Fodder. Yeah, fodder is a good part, but you have to worm them, free them from internal parasites. As I said, you can use either the things out there that you can buy from the store, or you can go the organic way and use locally available stuff, that type of thing. But of course, you gotta know what to buy and where to get it from. But then you have to look at ticks. Goats will get ticks like cows and those other animals, so you have to keep them free of that. So you have to get a good sprayer that you can spray them with, or there's also there's oil that you can run on the back that will protect them from tick infestation. So those and there are other insects that will plague goats, but you have to keep that in mind and come up with a regime that would keep them healthy, strong, and productive.
Worming and ticks are a really big thing. And there was something that they used to get, was it runny nose? And that we used to use something called Oromec for? What was that?
Yes, nose block. You call it
Right.
nose block. That's a common name for it here, nose block.
Yeah, so that's another thing that people...
Both sheep and goats get that nose block.
Yeah, because if that is not treated, that could actually be fatal after long time.
Yes, Yeah, yeah. That's why I say that you should clean your pen out on a regular basis and spray your pen for those kind of insects. That way, any that is left when you clean out, you would destroy those, and the animals will be basically be healthy.
Right. So you were talking about fodder just now. So obviously, it's a matter of giving goats grass to eat. But as we know, all grasses aren't equal. So what are some of the best types of grasses that people should grow when raising goats?
Well, growths, the you have Pangola grass. That's what we have here. We have Pangola, African star, and coarse cross. Those are three breeds of grasses that we use here in Barbados. There are other wild grasses like guinea grass that are also highly productive and they grow very fast. So those are the grasses that you can do. But goats, if they let out, if you let them out, they will eat a variety of things, bush and that type of thing.
So is it better then to have your goats put up or to let them run wild or a combination of both?
It all depends on what you're doing, what kind of production you're looking at. Um, we used to have ours that we let them out because when I find that when they go to their fodder for themselves, they choose what they want. Then you bring them in and you give them the feed. They have less problems to me. When you raising them on a commercial level where they're in a pen confined, like all other things, those come with related issues. So, but as I said, it all depends on what the person want and where the direction that they want to go in. But for me, I prefer to have the land area and have the goats walking around and picking some fodder and giving them feed, put them up in the night to keep them safe, and then in the morning you milk them and so on.
Okay, so so you had said before that in terms of chickens, you would have 1 square foot per chicken. So like roughly how many acres you would need for goats? Say like 1, 2 goats.
I never worked out the amount of acreage that you would need for goats. Obviously, it won't be as much as chickens as
A cow.
a cow. But I suppose for goats, if you have an acre land, you should be able to raise approximately about, I would say, 10 goats on that acre reasonably reasonable if you're giving them additional fodder and feed.
Okay. So what are some of the best types of other additional feed that you would give them? Because I know we used to mix some of our own feed. So like what are some of the ingredients that we used to use that would boost like the production of the growth and milk?
Well, we used to give them molasses. Molasses has a lot of minerals and so on, and then it has some sugars. So and it helps to keep their condition well. So we would put molasses in the feed, and we sometimes would use like other things like we would do corn, probably additional corn, because I grew corn one time, and I would chop up the stalk and give it to them, and then I gave them some of the corn itself, put there for them to eat the corn as it is, which is fresh corn, so it would be more nutritious. But generally speaking, if you use the normal feed and you have access to good fodder, as I say, if you're not going into production in terms of commercial, that you don't need your goat to give you a whole lot of milk, but just enough milk for you and your family and so on, a good quality fodder, and the animal can get around and forage, that would be good enough. Once you worm them and keep them free of ticks and other insects, they will produce very well. You don't need to give them the additional things.
Okay. So, but we used to use some of the chicken litter sometimes when we were making our own feed, no? But that was like a concoction we made up, no?
Yeah, we used to use that, but yeah, we used to use that because that was an experiment that the a guy, an agency from overseas was doing here, in that they were mixing the chicken litter with molasses, a lot of molasses. Then they were mixing it with what are they using it?
Pollard?
You could use pollard, but they weren't really using pollard. They were using
There wasn't this thing that was red?
it was a fertilizer that they were using. I can't remember what was the name of the fertilizer, and then they were putting some salt in it. I had the formula a time back, and I used to use it, but then I had stopped. But the main ingredient used to be molasses and the chicken litter. The other ingredients were small contributors, and that used to be pretty good, especially for sheep. For sheep.
Because the chicken litter would be still high in corn levels of corn, no?
Yes. And it had a lot. The chicken used to have a lot of fiber in it too, because we used to use like bagasse from the factory, the sugar factory. So the bagasse was high in fiber, and that used to be good for the sheep and the goats as well. But you have to be careful then in the sources of chicken litter that you're using, because if you're using chicken litter from, let's say, shavings, and the shavings are from, say, treated wood. Treated wood has chemicals in it, so then you have to be careful when you're feeding the animal. So if you're using chicken litter, you have to know the source of the chicken litter.
Okay, fair enough. And so in terms of like if you're having like a pasture for grass and stuff like that, obviously one of the challenges is always dry weather. So is it better to have like sprinklers, or say using drips, or a way to keep your pasture lush, or is it impossible to do?
I would imagine that the drip would be a bit of a challenge. I think the sprinklers would probably be more convenient in that you can run them and turn them on. The sprinkler, when the grass gets really tall, it's difficult then to find out where the sprinklers are, and then you may have problems because like Pangola and those other grasses have a lot of root system. And it's very, very possible that you could have roots going into the little small holes of the drip and clogging them up. So I think for irrigating fodder, I think the overhead sprinklers would be more feasible than the drip system. Drip system is mostly for vegetables.
Okay, fair enough. Because I know that we always had challenges with in drought, and we used to have to go and cut grass and sometimes buy grass. So I was wondering if there was, if it'd be feasible, or if it would make sense to even like water your grass.
If you're gonna water your grass, you will have to have a system set up where you can collect your water in the rain, from the rain, or if you have a well that you can use, because here the water we don't have. Our water is commercial. It comes through the commercial rates. When the quantity of water goes over a certain amount, then it's priced as a commercial rate. When it's below a certain amount, you get it as a domestic rate. So using water to irrigate the fodder could be costly, and you have to work out whether it's cost effective or not. The best thing would be to set up systems where you can collect rainwater in the rainy season, or dig a well and pump your water from the well and irrigate your fodder. That way, then you would have grass all year round. But you can still cut some grass and put down, like in a silo, or in a bale for when if things should happen and the grass don't grow as fast with the water as it would with the rain, and you will have an alternative.
Okay,
But
turn
all
on
those
your
are things you have to plan.
true. Because there's the thing about farming. A lot of it is to do with planning
Mm-hmm.
and experience. So this is why, like, because I know the way the world is going, the way it's going, I don't information like this is not really widely available because a lot of people will just be making the same mistakes that we made when we first started. You know?
You want me to turn on your light?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's better. So no, let's talk about rams and goats. So when growing rams for consumption or for sale, what are some of the little tips that should be done to help produce better quality meat and also to relieve some of the problems? Because rams are problematic sometimes.
Well, problematic in the sense that as they grow, they become stubborn and wicked. But generally speaking, if you when rams get over a certain size, you shouldn't really be keeping them together because they will do a lot of fighting. So you should design it in such a way that you can isolate them when they get a certain size. Um, but fodder and feed is the key. The same thing, same conditions and everything as you would have it if you're raising normal sheep. You would do with the ram. You give them the medications and the vitamins, and you raise them. You keep them away from the females so that they wouldn't lose their energy. And in about 8 months, depending on the size you want to get, in about 8 months or so, if you raise them healthy and give them plenty of feed, they will reach the size that you want to get.
Well, you say about losing energy. So one of the strategies we used to do is we used to castrate them. So that is handy.
We used to castrate them. That helped them from running after the females and make it easier to handle. And also, if you're going to keep them with the females, you don't want them to be mounting them, so because you don't want to breed from them. So we would castrate them. But you can castrate if you're raising them for meat and you're going to keep them separate. You don't have to castrate them. But if you know that you're raising them, you don't have the facilities, and you want to be raising them with the rest of the flock, and you give them good feed and so on, you can castrate them.
And a tool that we used to use was, it looked like a pliers, but it had like tongues that would come up.
Yeah.
And you put a rubber band, a very rigid rubber band, and you open it and you put it around the testicles.
Yes,
and
right at the base. Yeah.
Right. As soon as they're born, like within a couple of days after birth.
Yes.
Within a couple of days. Within, I think, 3-4 weeks, the testicles would just drop off.
About that, yeah. Because you
restrict the blood.
You restrict the blood flow, and it will dry up and drop off.
Well, that was one of the things that really made a difference for us because just like all male species, once females are around, they just go mad.
And they start very young. They start real young.
Young. After a few months, they're looking to hump.
Yeah.
So
within 3 months and then they're ready. So it can be very distracting. So if you're going to be doing that and you have them among the females, it's best to castrate them.
Yeah. And another thing with goats is with horns. So what we used to do is we used to burn out their horns when they're young. I mean, you may need to do a couple of attempts because they would still be wanting to grow. But in terms of damage, goats are a little bit different from sheep. We'll talk about sheep as well, but goats are a little bit different where they have a bit of a different temperament. And with horns, they destroy everything. You would have a pen and the goat may just want to go and get a female and he would beat up that pen till you come back and there's no more pen, right? So we found that burning out the horns helped in that respect in terms of damage because they would charge you as well. And if they don't have a horn, you will still get a good lash, but with the horns, it's a little bit more dangerous, you know?
Yes. Hmm. Yeah, we used
And
to burn the
then,
horns. Within a day or two, we will burn the horns out. Because the horns would be soft at that point.
yeah. So these are all the little tips that you would need to know when you're raising goats, because um, goats are fantastic animals. They will literally eat every single thing that they ever see. Do not have trees around. If you have trees, protect your trees, because we learned the hard way and they destroyed some of our fruit trees. So, because they eat the bark off the trees. So protect your trees and anything that you want to save, because they will literally eat everything. If you give them a chance, they will try to eat the hair off your body, right? Because they
Yeah,
just
the goats will forage on any bush,
anything.
bark, and most bushes they will eat, and they will climb up and reach the highest piece to eat it. They will kill your trees. The sheep is a little different, slightly different. Sheep don't really eat bark off the trees. They will eat the leaves and so on. But goats are more versatile in terms of what they eat.
Yeah, it is true, and they have a slightly different temperament as well. So, and one of the things that we found is that the quality, the meat, the goat, the rams, when you slaughter them, was a little bit better when they were castrated, for some reason. And then also, what are some of the techniques that we used to use when to get the meat so soft? Because obviously, there's different techniques,
Maybe carry a goat to the slaughterhouse and they're slaughtered at the market. I would ask the guy to hang the meat for a couple of days. When you hang the meat for a couple of days and let it drain properly, then the muscles deteriorate in a sense. So the meat is not as tough, not as hard, because the muscles that make the meat hard. So once you do that, then when in a couple of days, you go back and get, you cook it. The meat is so soft, so soft. different,
Yeah.
different quality to just killing the animal and putting it in the fridge and cooking it.
So,
Different.
yeah, because when we used to sell both mutton for sheep and goats, everybody used to want more because the quality, the softness, the suppleness of the meat, you didn't even need to use a pressure cooker to cook it. You just put it in a normal pot and it was just so soft and succulent. So these are the little tips that you see people, if you want to really grow your own animals and you want to get good quality meat, these are the little things that you're learning from an actual proper professional farmer, right? These are not things that you're going to get taught or you would know. This is from trial and error. So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about sheep now, because they're similar but still slightly different. So can you tell us what are the major differences between raising sheep and goats?
I think sheep are easier to raise in the sense that they're hardier. They're much more, they're tougher. They withstand a lot more. And they're more, unless you're going to get a sheep, a goat that is like the boar goat, that is specifically bred for meat, then in terms of growth and meat production, the sheep will outproduce the Sienna and the Target bird and those, because they're primarily bred for milk. So they're not really bred for meat production. So a sheep is mostly bred for meat production. So the sheep will be better at raising for meat production than a goat. But there are varieties of goats that are more meat oriented, and you can use those too. But sheep are, as I said, are heartier. They're stronger, in my opinion, and you can do more with them. They'll survive in tougher conditions than a goat will, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure, because we had sheep that were attacked by dogs. I remember as a kid, I accidentally stabbed a sheep. Well, I was lifting it over the pen, and the pen had like spikes
Barbed
and
wire.
barbed wire,
Well,
and
not barbed wire, but what it was, no, it was.
it was the square link fence, no?
What is called that? What was that?
Was that more like
It was where that you mostly would put in your foundation.
foundation? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we cut it, they had like some spikes at the top. So when I was a young boy, I was like 14 or something. That wasn't strong enough, really. Or I just missed sight. I can't remember which one, because that was a long time ago. And when I went to lift the sheep over, I actually accidentally stabbed the sheep, and then I realized and I lifted it back up, and that sheep survived. That sheep was strong. Like, all we did is we cleaned the wounds, and that same sheep was attacked by dogs, had chunks, literal chunks taken out of it. And that sheep healed, and they had more lambs. So if that were a goat, that goat would be done.
That goat would have passed away.
Long time.
A goat does not take stress.
At all. So I guess in terms of like the worming regimes, and basically it's the same things that apply to goats apply to sheep in terms of the nose blot they would get. And how often would you worm your sheep?
I would say about if I had to do sheep, I would worm my sheep for the beginning, about 4 months to start. And then after that, about every 6 months, you can worm. But you have to start in the beginning, because you don't know when you get an animal from somewhere if it's infested with worms or not. So when you get it and you worm it first, then about 3-4 months after, you give it some worming and do that for a whole while. And once you get control, then you think you have control of the internal parasites. Because even though you may worm them and you get rid of those live worms or adult worms, there's still eggs in the system that after a while those would hatch out and affect the sheep too. So you have to worm more than once. So I would say after you do a couple 4-month spells, then when you know your sheep, your animals are not carrying any worms, about every 6 months or so you can worm them, and that would keep them from catching any worms in the future.
And one of the things that we learned as well is that if your sheep recently got served by the ram, you shouldn't worm them very shortly afterwards, because that tends to cause miscarriages and stuff like that. So
that can affect it. Yeah.
So that's a little tip for you as well. So like I said, people, these are all the things that like my father and I have learned ourselves, and over years and years and years. So these are things that you're not going to get taught at school, or basically a farmer is going to come and really tell you, because he's going to want to keep all the knowledge for himself, So can you tell us one of the biggest lessons you learned in the beginning when raising sheep?
Preparing the space for the sheep before the sheep arrive, rather than bringing the sheep and then preparing the space, because it is a headache. When you got the time, you can go into details as to exactly what you want to put the sheep in. But when you bring that sheep there and you're fighting with time to get a roof over his head or something proper, you make a lot of mistakes. And one of the things that you have in choosing the area where you're going to put your house in, you want to pick a spot that is kind of on the hill, so that rainwater does not run into your pen. The water runs off. That is one of so it gives you time to look for those things. When you're in a rush, you make a lot of mistakes. And when you make those mistakes, then the animals suffer from it. So I would say one of the biggest and most important things to start off with is to have the space prepared the animal before it arrives and make sure that you choose the best spots. And you have to look at security. You know, when it says security, I mean, the pen has to be built in such a way that the animal can't get out when you're not there. Because animals, when they first come there, they will look to escape. So you have to make sure that whatever you build is fairly secure. Because an animal, a young animal, he escapes and he goes somewhere. So you might not find him for a day or two. And when you do get him, when you do find him, he's weak. And then there's a process now that you have to rebuild him if he survives. So, yeah, those are one of the things. And when you're having young mothers giving birth, you have to be very careful to make sure that when she born, that the lamb or the lambs actually go and suckle the breast, because sometimes a first mother can be a little hesitant in accepting a newborn, and they will tend to move them away, push them away, and so on. And if that animal takes too long before you get the colostrum, then the lamb will die, because you will feel that the animal nursing, and it isn't. So in those cases, sometimes what we would do is we would actually go and milk off some of the colostrum and put it in a bottle and give it to the lamb for a day or so that it would get that strength. That then when it goes to the mother, it has the strength and the persistence to force the mother to suckle it.
Yeah,
so
that is.
some of the things.
Yeah, that is a problem that we've had a few times, especially with young mothers, especially first time mothers, where for some reason they would just give birth, but they're not checking for their offspring at all. You know, it's like something in their internal wiring just isn't there. So you have to really be careful. And this is for goats as well, right? Where they would just, because what it is that they tend to have to smell them. So that is one of the ways that they know that it's theirs, because the animals have a particular smell. So what you do is you tend to, if sometimes they born the lambs without you knowing, but if you know that she's ready, you try to keep her in a close quarters, you know, in a pen that's kind of small. So it forces her to spend time with it and to get to know that it's hers, you know, because
exactly.
it can give problems where like they would literally butt it away, you know, and just
they will reject them. That happens sometimes. So those are the methods that we use. You know, as you say, a close corner, and you keep them with the mother by themselves for a couple of days, that her fully acclimatized to them and get to notice them, their smell, and the lambs get to know their mother. Because what can happen too is that if you have more than one goat or sheep, you have a few. Sometimes when you keep them in with all the rest, and they're now born, they get confused as to which is their mother, and then they can tend to get lost. And if they stay away from the mother for a length of time, for whatever reason, I don't know, the mother like this just tend to reject them. So it's always better that when you see your goat or your sheep, lamb, what we do is we take the lamb, and we put her in a confined area, feed her, give her water, let her get accustomed to the lamb and the lamb to her. And if we observe that he's not milking, then we would assist him in getting the some milk and give it to him. That way it strengthens him, and he's able to pursue her then for milk. And he usually succeeds. After a day, 2 days or so, you find that the mother is nursing the lamb quite comfortably. You wonder what that was all about. But
it's true. It's true. So let's talk a little bit about cows, as beef is probably the most consumed meat that we have on the planet. So what are some of the most important things that people should consider when raising cows?
if you're going to raise a beef cow, buy a beef breed. Don't get a milk breed and try to turn it into a beef breed. For one, you're not going to get the production, and most of those milk breeds are horned animals. And those bulls, when they get a certain size, can become very dangerous and they become very high spirited. I find that they're more high spirited than the beef breed. You buy a beef breed, you buy a red pole, a Angus, those breeds. They're a lot quieter to me. They're easy to control because they don't have the horn that can impale you. And in terms of feed and production, they're much better in production and they can actually make meat from just fodder, good quality fodder. Whereas the milk breeds like the Holstein and the Guernsey and those other breeds, they require quite a bit of feed to keep them in condition.
So I guess so. That's that that makes sense because it's all about cost. Then because the thing is with a cow, unlike with a goat, cows consume feed, so the budget is way bigger than with a couple of goats. So if you it can be catastrophic for the pocket if you choose the wrong breed and trying to get meat from it.
Yeah, because the milk breeds are specifically designed or bred for high milk production, not really to carry flesh. So maintaining even a bull, a bull has still got the same genetics, so he's not really very good at meat conversion. So he's going to require a lot more feed to keep him in condition than he would a beef breed. But the beef breeds are bred specifically to make meat offer very little nutrition, mostly grass and good fodder.
Right. So since cows are big animals, and how many acres per cow would a person need if they actually want to raise a cow on their own land, roughly?
For a cow, you need at least about 2 acres of land, but probably more.
One cow?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, one cow is required if he's walking around grazing, put it that way, or you're tying him up to graze, he needs an acre or more than an acre. If you're going to be cutting the grass and bring to him, then you can get away with less, because the grass will, if you're irrigating it, the grass will grow faster. And but when he's walking on it and trampling it and sleeping on it and so on, that helps to reduce the production as well. So,
so you're saying it could be 2 acres per cow?
Yeah. If he's walking around grazing, by himself, you gotta consider damage for the grass. But as I say, if you're keeping him in a pen and you're cleaning the pen and you're bringing the fodder to him, if he's a beef breed and you're bringing the fodder to him, then it would take less. It would take less.
Yeah, and then obviously the cost to give him feed is a lot more.
Well, the beef breed don't really require a lot of feed.
Really?
They don't require a lot of feed. They can do well on good quality grass, good quality fodder. And if you give them some molasses, high energy thing, you worm them and you give them vitamins and you give them good fodder, they can do well on it. It's also true if they're just walking around grazing, they will do very well as well also. But they will take more land area because they're going to be walking and trampling, and especially during the rainy season when the ground is really wet and they got a good size and they walk out there, they're going to push that grass down the ground. So you can get areas that will grow better.
Okay, so big animals require much bigger space,
Much, much more space, yeah.
which is the reason why I love goats so much, because you get the milk, you get the meat, and it's just way easier to handle.
Like goats will reach maturity in terms of meat if you have a meat breed in a couple of months, whereas
A
a
cow,
cow will take about 2 years.
yeah. So it's the cycle as well that you have to
Yeah,
consider
yeah.
in terms of you know, growing
That's
them.
why that's why most people that raise cows for meat, they will tend to confine them and bring the fodder to them because it's more productive and it is easier to maintain. You clean your pen out on a regular basis every week at least. Take out that litter and spray him down, wash him down if you want, depending on what surface you have him on. And you bring the fodder to him that he won't waste as much. Put the fodder in there in a cage or something that he can access it without laying down on it, and he will grow well and make a good beef animal.
What you said just now is quite important, and I would like to stress that now. And this is applicable to goats, sheep, and cows. Is to have an actual cage that you put the fodder in, so that they can pull it out. Because if you just put it on the floor, they will urinate on it, they will lie down in it, and you would
Yeah,
lose a vast, I would say maybe even 50% of the
yeah, about
fodder that you
half of
give
it.
them.
Yes,
So
about half. Mhm.
so the best thing is to have a cage that is hung, that is made out of wire, a strong wire, and it has some small squares so that they can pull the grass out, and you lose a lot less. Maybe about 10% of the grass you would actually lose that way, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's what we used to do.
Yeah, because we found that just putting the grass on the floor, waste of time, man. Like, they just wouldn't eat it because it would. And to be fair, if they're urinating in it and lying down in it, well, would you want to eat your own food if you lie down and urinate in it? You know what I mean?
And when they walk on it too, because they're stooling in the same area, so when their feet are gonna be carrying the scent of the stool. So when they walk on the grass, they don't want to eat it anymore. So that's why you used to build a little cage with the squares big enough that they can get their mouth to a certain point in, and we will hang it from a roof or wherever, and we will pack it with the fodder, and they would eat it, and they waste very little.
Yeah, and that'd be cost efficient and time efficient as well. Because if you're cutting grass, then obviously that's labor, you know.
Of course, you don't want to go and throw away half the grass, then to go back the next day to cut, when you can
True.
cut one time and that save him a good few days.
Absolutely. So cows being big animals, so handling them can be challenging. So what do you have any tips for the listeners that one can use to improve the handability of them, especially bulls?
From young, don't beat them. If
Really?
you, yeah, if you, they have good memories. If you raising a bull and for whatever reason he gets you vexed, some people have a habit of, to hit him and that sort of thing. When he get big, he will become a very wicked bull. Telling you, he
Wow.
will. Because as he grow, he will come to realize how much bigger he is to you, and he ain't afraid of you no more. So he will come for you when you raise that whip to hit him. He's gonna turn at you.
Wow.
So that's one of the most important attribute things that you should do. But I don't like the idea of matching them up too much neither, because they get friendly and they come and they rubbed in their head against you, and they're very strong, powerful
Very.
animals. So you don't want that. You treat them at a certain amount of distance, but be kind to them. That's how I would put it. And you and them will get along well, because
Um,
don't put it. If you raising a cow and he go over 12, 1,400 pounds, can't handle an animal that size.
True. So would say even having a nose ring help to control him?
That does help, but sometimes them nose rings just pull out too.
Jeez.
But they're very big, and strong. But the nose rings will help. But as I say, if you're gentle with them and you having a nose ring, he will let you lead him all around the place. But as soon as you start to get aggressive with them and you get a certain size, he ain't gonna care about no nose ring. But they're very strong and very stubborn, and they have a certain amount of tolerance for pain. I've seen where some of them have pulled out the ring of the nose. So the best way is to just treat them well, and they will follow you around.
Wow, I did not even know that they would remember and they would come after you, like if you turn your back and stuff.
Yeah, if you raise them up and keep hitting them, you like for whatever reason, some people will tend to hit them, like if they're a child or something. That don't work with bulls. When they get a certain size and the hormones start to kick in, and they'll look at you and see that you're so small, that don't work.
So I remember we used to tie them around their heads as well, or if they had horn.
If they have horn, yeah. If they have horn, you tie them around the horns. That
Yeah.
that gives you good control. But still, even though if you get a heavy enough bull, determined enough bull, you want to go in a certain direction, you still got trouble pulling him back.
It's
You
true.
still carry
true.
with him. But for one that don't have a horn, you use a harness around their head. If you don't have a nose ring, and you still can have the nose ring along with the harness around the head, that gives you more control. But as I say, the easiest way to control it, bull, is not have him get angry. Because no matter what you have on, if he gets angry, you can't control him.
So are there any particular breeds that are notorious for just getting angry?
The Holstein. Holsteins. I find the Holsteins got a very high temperament. But there are other horn animals, cows, bulls that are very, very wicked. But I don't trust the Holsteins when they get a certain size.
And a tip
They're not
for everyone:
they're not
never
gentle
turn your.
animals.
And a tip for everyone listening: never, ever, ever turn your back to a cow, because it just takes a slight turn your back, and he will try to hit you. Because even with goats, right? Because we had a goat before Elvis. Elvis was pretty sick. Like you could never turn your back to him. He was the most aggressive goat we ever had. He actually butt my father. So these rams, you don't really play with them because some of them are extremely aggressive.
Oh yeah.
And they give you a good hit. And especially like a cow. A cow is what, 1,200, 1,400 pounds. So that's like
Some bigger,
six.
some heavier.
So we're talking about half ton, right? 500 and something kilos. That's pretty heavy, man. You know what I mean? So when it comes to like the different breed, I think you said the Jersey, the Guernsey are for milk, and the Angus and the Red Pole for meat, right?
Yeah.
And what about the Black Poles?
Black poles is similar to the red pole and the Angus. Most the black pole is just let me see, the red poles is a breed that was, I think, it come off the Jamaican Reds, and the black pole is just another version of them, but they're similar, in my opinion. They're similar to the red pole. The red pole and the black pole, to me, I find them to be about the same.
So is there like
The Angus is a different breed. Even the meat quality is different and everything.
well, that was what I was just going to ask you. So like in terms of, I would say, well, I'm not sure, but I'm assuming that the Angus is the best quality meat. This is why you always hear about Angus burgers all the time.
I won't say it's the best quality meat. The Angus meat is a good quality meat. The Belgian Blue
Okay.
is a better quality meat. But there are lots of other. The Charlotte, they're a good quality meat too. But they are what you call animals that have a lot more muscle, put on a lot more meat than the red pole or the black pole or the Angus. But the quality, the meat of them are pretty good.
So those would be like the 5-star meat type steaks you'd be getting from those type of animals, the Belgian Blue and stuff.
Yeah. But it all depends. Some people like the Angus. Some people prefer the Angus because of the flavor. But the Belgian Blue meat, in terms of fat, is less fat.
Okay.
But some people prefer the flavor of the Angus. Put it that way.
Okay. So although I'm not really a fan of pork, I know that there are many people out there that love pork. So what are some of the lessons that you learned when, on how to grow good quality pigs?
Man, the thing with pigs will survive on anything and in any condition. There's not really a lot that you need to know about pigs. They're very strong. They will eat anything.
Literally.
And they will make meat off of anything. Feed, cuttings, grass, anything. They will can. They used to eat, go on the campgrounds and Ramish campgrounds.
Wow.
They will eat literally anything. So, but they're big animals, so overcrowding I would say, is one of the issues with them. And wash them down on a regular basis, morning and evening. Wash them down, and you will be good with them.
Okay,
They don't take a lot. They don't take a lot of experience. Put it that way. They don't take a lot of experience to raise. As long as you keep the pens clean, wash them down on a regular basis, and you give them something to eat, they will do well.
Okay, so you know how you had said in the beginning that with chickens, the hygiene for the pen is really probably the match winner for it. In terms of raising pigs, the hygiene isn't as important compared to chickens.
No. You can raise pigs on plain cement, or you can raise them on plain dirt. You just all you gotta do is clean the area out and wash them off occasionally, even if you don't wash them off. But it's always good to wash them off because the skin will remain nice and clean. But as I said, pigs are not hard to raise. Any person can actually raise a pig. The most important thing is to give them the feed and water, proper water. But you have to. You have to prepare an area for them where they're going, because they can get rid when they grow a certain size. They can bite out wood and all kind of escape. So you have to prepare. You have to prepare a proper area for them.
That is eating anything to the next level. They would eat down the wood to get out.
Yeah, they will break, if you got them in a wooden pen, they will eat down the wood and break out. That's why people usually build the pig pens out of cement blocks or galvanized steel pipes, so that they can retain. If you're using wood, they will gnaw down the wood and bust out.
So I guess there's no. So okay, since they would eat anything, does that mean then that if you wanted to get like good quality tasting pork, is there certain like little things that they would need to do, or just because the pig's nature would eat anything, it doesn't really matter?
But I won't say it doesn't matter, because if you're raising any animal for you to consume, you should always be conscious of what you're feeding them. So you don't want your pig, if you're raising a pig, you don't want your pig to eat anything. Are you saying that he will eat anything? Don't mean that you should feed him anything. I just mean that he's that hearty that if things was really, really hard, you couldn't find something proper to feed him, anything he would eat, scrap food, cuttings, fruit cuttings, anything. That's what I'm saying that he would eat. Whereas other animals may not eat that. You cook a piece of food and you got food left by and you ain't about to feed from you, give him some of your food, he will eat it. And he will do well on it too. But if you're raising the animal for yourself to consume and so on, you go and you buy feed, a nutritious feed, and feed him, and he will do well. All I'm saying is that he does not take a lot of care. Once you give him a good pen that he's not going to rip up and escape, and you got it good hygiene to wash him down, give him fresh water every day and so on, he will do well.
And then what in terms of like quotation marks free range pork pigs, where they're able to walk around and stuff, or it just so hard of an animal, it doesn't really matter?
I don't know about free range pigs. I've never really checked into free range pigs.
With those pigs that walk around and pick and eat and, rub up in the dirt and all that kind of stuff.
I don't know if I would want pork from that though. Because as I say, when a pig get out in the wild, I don't know what eating.
Right. Because they just eat anything.
Eat anything. When he's out there and he hunting, I'm not sure he'd be eating the best things that I would want him to eat. Because they're survivors, right? Mm-hmm. They're survivors and they're very adaptive as to what they eat.
Right. Got you. Well, folks, this you're hearing some of the best information you will get about raising animals. And the only thing we didn't touch today was like turkeys, but turkeys are pretty much poultry, just like ducks, pretty much like poultry. So a lot of the same rules do apply, to be fair. And today I wanted to give you all, for all those people that follow me on Instagram and have their homesteads and stuff, I hope that this information was valuable, and I hope that it added value to you. And so, Pai, to get you out of here, please tell the people where they can find you, and if they have any questions or actually want your help in terms of helping them with this, because clearly raising animals is just like growing food is a science, and they're things that you have to know. If not, you make tons of mistakes. So tell the people where they can find you and all that good stuff.
Well, my email address is caveronald@gmail.com. And my WhatsApp is 239-6867.
Right, and that's +1246 in front.
Plus
so
1246, yes, with the area code, yes.
So my father's information, his number, if you wanted to call him, and also his email address will be in the description of this podcast. And as you know, people, I help spiritually inclined people burn fat and build muscle. And now that we're in 2025, it is the first week of January. Everyone is going to be trying to get into shape. So the stats show that about 90% of people fail in their fitness journey within the first month, and about 50% of people give up within the first 2 weeks. So if you don't want to be another statistic and you would like some help to get into the best shape of your life, because 2025 is going to be a very tough, challenging and monumental year, and everything going on this grand chessboard, with pieces being moved in the background. This is why I brought my father on, so that we can start to prepare. So this type of information will help you, so you can download this episode and the other episode we did about growing food to have, so that you can learn to do things. So if you would like to get into the best shape of your life, you can find me on Instagram at Adriano_246 or my name, Todd Cave, on Facebook. And if you also are on a spiritual journey and you would like some help removing some fears and traumas, and you would like to, try some magic mushrooms, you can also hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 or my name, Todd Cave. And as you know, we have a merch store, and this store helps to support the podcast and help us to invest in better equipment and stuff like that. And if you would like to get the Conscious Man 7 shirt, you can see I've got on the blue one today. So you've got loads of different colors. And if you do get one of the shirts, you can always DM me on Instagram, you with the shirt, and I will tag you in my stories and shout you out, and also shout you out in my podcast. So I'd like to shout out Kristen as well, who got her Conscious Man 7 shirt, and she sent me a message. So thanks, Kristen, for supporting this podcast, and I know that you're listening as well. And people, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share, because that helps us to be recommended in the algorithms. And people, this was another awesome conversation. And stay tuned, because we have some more great guests coming soon. Speak to you soon. Much love to you. Happy New Year to all, and a prosperous 2025. Cheers and namaste.
Good night.